Today I have a legal story for you, and I want you to get comfortable. Grab a glass of tea, get comfortable, lay back, watch a little zombies gameplay from Black Ops 7's new map, and I want to tell you about a story that never really left New Zealand. But before I do, this is not a story about whether someone's guilty or not. That has already been tested in court. But those convictions were later quashed,
with which I was never personally linked, and after which all convictions were quashed.
and that he was not a convicted murderer. But this case, the Bain case, remains one of New Zealand's most haunting legal stories because even after all the verdicts, and the appeals, and the retrial, and the settlement, the country never agreed on what it had witnessed. And we're going to fight some zombies while we're doing this. The 20th of June, 1994, in Dunedin, in a bleak cold winter, a cold house, a quiet street, Robert and Margaret, their children, Arawa, Lynette, Stephen and David. By the end of that morning, 5 of those members of the family were dead. Robert, Margaret, Arawa, Lynette and Stephen. David Bain was the only surviving immediate family member. David had been out on his paper run that morning. When he returned home, the ordinary rhythm of the day was broken. The house was no longer just a family home, it became a crime scene. A young man on the phone, distressed, repeating that everyone was dead. That call would become part of the methodology of this case, not because it answered everything, but because it sounded like the beginning of a nightmare.
What's the matter?
They're all dead. I came home and they're all dead.
Whereabouts are you?
Every street.
Or every street?
65 every street. They're all dead.
Who's all dead?
My family, they're all dead. Hurry up.
It's okay.
A family gone and one survivor left to explain the impossible. When the police arrived, sorry, I'm trying not to get killed here. When the police arrived, they found a scene that would later be picked apart by lawyers. What they found was a rifle, clothing, blood evidence, and there were questions about the footprints. There was also a computer message saying, "Sorry, you're the only one who deserved to stay." And that sentence became one of the most chilling pieces of public story, not because it spoke clearly, but because it didn't. Who wrote it? What did it mean? Who was it to you? And why did someone believe only one person deserved to stay? 4 days later, on the 14th of June 1994, David Bain was charged with murdering 5 members of his family. But they got him on 5 counts of murder. And in June 1995, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum period of 16 years. At that point, many people believed the case was closed. The jury had spoken and a young man had been convicted. The justice system had given its answer, but the Bain case did not close. It split right open. Because one of the most prominent public advocates for David Bain. He studied the case, he challenged the evidence and wrote about it. He pushed the argument that something was seriously wrong with the conviction. To some people, Karamate became a hero. The man who refused to let the case die. To others, he became a controversial figure. A man who, in their view, kept reopening wounds that should have been left alone. But whether people liked him or not, his involvement changed the life of the case. This case became a national argument about evidence, police work, forensic interpretations. The Privy Council quashed David Bain's convictions. The reason was powerful. There was a substantial miscarriage of justice that had occurred after a retrial was ordered. But that did not mean that the Privy Council declared him innocent. The convictions could not safely stand. The law required the case to be tried again. Now think for a moment. For more than a decade, David Bain had been in prison as a convicted murderer. Then suddenly, the legal foundation beneath that conviction had cracked. The case was alive again. The courtroom doors were open, and in 2009 the retrial began in Christchurch. It had been moved from Dunedin because the case was too well known there. People started to form opinions. Families debated it, talkback radio debated it, newspapers debated it. People who had never read full evidence still felt uncertain. And at the retrial, the Crown and defence offered competing theories. The Crown's case was that David Bain was responsible, and the defence case was that Robin Bain, the father, was responsible and had taken his own life. So they were saying that the father was responsible for all of the murders, leaving Bain behind, and then killing himself after. Rifle, the blood evidence, the clothes, the computer message, the timing, the paper, the washing machine, the fingerprints, the clothing. But what's frightening is that the same evidence could be arranged in different stories. And that's why it divided the country. Wow, a pistol. That's really going to help, isn't it? It's really going to help. Give me an AK-47. It's alright, but come on, give me something good. PPSH. The Mirage. I'm having a Mirage right now. What is that gun, like, honestly? Wow. Anyway, one person could look at the evidence and say that the Crown's theory makes sense. Another could look at the evidence and say no, the defence theory raises serious reasonable doubt. And in criminal law, reasonable doubt is everything. The Crown does not have to show that a theory is interesting. It must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And the defence does not have to prove innocence at all. It only needs to show that the Crown's case is not enough for a conviction. The 5th of June 2009, after the retrial, the jury found David Bain was not guilty on all 5 murder charges. Outside of the courtroom, that moment looked like a release. For the supporters, it was vindication. For the critics, it was frustration. And for the legal system, it was a result of a criminal trial, and the Crown had not obtained the conviction. Let the victims disappear. It was Robin, Margaret, Arwa, and Lynette and Stephen. Whatever theory a person believes, these 5 members of the family died in their own home and the family was destroyed. A suburb woke up to a horror story. A country spent decades arguing over it. And after the acquittal came, the compensation was of issue. David Bain sought compensation for wrongful conviction and imprisonment, and that became another legal and political battle in 2016. The Crown agreed to make an ex gratia payment of $925,000. The Ministry of Justice later recorded the important nuisance that there was no statement of innocence and no formal compensation payment under the ordinary compensation category, but the ex gratia payment was made to resolve the matter and avoid further litigation. An acquittal means not guilty in law, but it did not automatically mean the state declares factual innocence for compensation purposes. And that's why the compensation chapter became so controversial. It sat right on the front line between law, politics, and money, and public emotion. Then the years moved on. The Bain case became books, podcasts, documentaries, articles, university lectures, lectures on evidence law, criminal law discussions. It became about the case people used to argue about bigger things. How reliable is forensic evidence? How careful are the police in investigations? How much weight should be given to expert witnesses? Criminal justice is powerful. It can take someone's liberty, it can mark the person forever. It can give victims a voice, but it can also make some mistakes. And when it makes mistakes, the damage is not minimal. But of course it is debatable, and of course public have their own views. And of course the facts of the case were damning. The centre of it, and at the centre of all of it, 5 names should not be forgotten. Robin, Margaret, Orwell, Lynette and Stephen. The Bain case is not just that mystery, it's that legal wound. And even now, decades later, New Zealand still touches that scar. If you enjoyed that, if you wanted to hear more stories and cases like this, please send me a comment below. I understand that some of these cases are pulling multiple theories and multiple thoughts on whether someone is damned or someone is not. So truly, I understand. And I understand there are many viewpoints, point of views and perspectives that you may rely on. But one thing is clear. All of these are for your entertainment only. And I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you were not offended. Because I have more stories, more public cases that are known within the lands which deserve to have their spotlight. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next one.